And my name is Yasmine. I'm from London 360 and I worked on a package called Hip Hop and Homosexuality.
Once again, Say Something UK, and we are joined by London 360's Yasmine.
Hello.
What's going on?
How you doing?
Hi,
Yeah.
guys.
You're right.
Howdy, buddy.
The body great, the body fine.
Good. Shout out Sierra
Awesome.
Leone. Had to slot that one in there.
Yeah.
We're not going to go any further.
My career is not great at all.
It's cool. For the listeners at home who are probably thinking, what did we just say? Like, it's cool. Yasmine is my honorary Sierra Leonean sister in the building right now.
Yeah.
So obviously we rap UK full stop, but we had to just put in
gone
an
a bit
SL
see it.
full
You
stop.
gotta
Yeah,
rep the
exactly.
country. You
For
gotta
a
rep-
second, you get me? But anyways, back to business, back to why we're actually here. Please just tell the people why you're here.
Yeah, so Crash set us a package, well, he set us a feature to do, and mine was Hip Hop and Homosexuality, and I had a great time working on it, and I'm just here to present it to the listeners, present it to the Westside people, and that is what is going on.
Cool.
You said that you had quite a, not like a difficult time, but it was one of those subjects that is quite touchy.
Yeah, it was quite challenging because people were very apprehensive to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite a taboo subject, so people kind of like, oh, I don't know what to say, I don't know where to go with it. So that was what I found quite challenging. But then I spoke to a gay rapper who was amazing to speak to. He had a lot of valuable things to say, and he kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things that I wouldn't have thought of initially when I started the feature. Yeah, so that was...
I can't wait to hear this, honestly.
Yeah. Definitely. So, I mean, obviously, we've been talking a little bit about the struggles, but what was something that really surprised you that maybe was positive?
I mean, what I found really positive was interviewing Q-Boy, who you guys will hear in a bit.
Yeah.
And he said that even though he had a lot of apprehension when he was going into rapping and going into hip hop, he found that it was a great platform for queer people. So
Yeah.
I found that really amazing. And he said that he could really identify with the struggles that hip hop came from and that hip hop emerged from. So Yeah, I found that really amazing. I found that really cool.
Wow, that's awesome, man. And in terms of finding like gay rappers, how easy or difficult was it?
It wasn't very hard, to be honest. There's a whole
Wow.
movement. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
whole movement that emerged in the 90s that's still going on today.
In the 90s?
In the 90s, but it was very underground.
Yeah.
But now they're still doing their thing. There's people like Zebra Katz, who is gaining mainstream success.
Yeah.
But Q-Boy, he was on the internet. He was on Vice. So I read a really
Awesome.
interesting article.
Nice.
And then I contacted him via Twitter. It wasn't hard at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good as well that, I mean, he's openly able to talk about it, because I imagine that there may have been people that maybe they wanted to say something but were a bit scared to come out and say.
I think you have to own yourself and you have to own your truth and bring it to the music. So
Yeah.
I find that that's probably why he was open with it. What is there to hide? He is who he is, So, yeah.
For sure. Okay, cool. So if you would like to introduce your radio documentary.
Yeah, so again, my name is Yasmine. I'm from London 360 and I worked on a package called Hip Hop and Homosexuality. I've got some great voices in there, a lot of arguments, a lot of different angles. And yes, enjoy everyone. For gay rapper Q-Boy, the hate that hip hop perpetuated towards his sexuality was no barrier.
It always seemed to be that hip hop was at odds with being gay, but I never saw it that way. I felt like it was actually quite aligned. Hip hop was really to give a voice and a platform for disenfranchised black men, and I feel like that platform can be utilised just as well for queer people.
And there you have it, Hip Hop and Homosexuality, radio documentary by Yasmine at London 360.
That was super powerful, honestly.
It was,
Thank
man.
you.
It
Yeah.
was like, and you know what? It's really like, there were so many different things from different people. Like, not everyone had the same kind of answer. It didn't feel rehearsed, because I think that when you kind of came in there they weren't expecting you to ask them that question.
Yeah.
I think.
Literally at all. I think I took them quite off guard when I asked them the question. It was kind of like, oh, they didn't really have a time to think of a politically correct answer. They really just came out with whatever it was that came straight to mind, which I thought was really interesting, because then what was coming up was people were talking about imagery and what you look like and how that was relative to sexuality.
Yeah.
So Lethal Bizzle was speaking about how, you know, the gay community has influenced dress sense.
Yeah.
And then Q-Boy was speaking about how the gay community didn't accept him because of what he was wearing. So the idea of what you look like and how that was reflective of his sexuality came up quite a lot.
Yeah. Nice. So, I mean, do you personally think that, you know, attitudes are changing, in particular the UK?
I think attitudes are definitely changing. In terms of hip-hop has evolved a lot from where it started. If we look at it back in the day, where there was a lot of things about political activism, then the gangster rap in the 90s. Obviously, this was all in America. But I think now that hip-hop has diversified and it is assimilated into a lot of other genres, people are dipping into all sorts of different little things. I think attitudes have definitely evolved. What do you guys think?
It's one of those things where I think homosexuality in different genres, I think it is more accepted. You have Sam Smith, who has won a gazillion gongs, but then I think in hip hop it's still like what they were saying in the doc. It's like it's sort of like if you're not a macho rapper, then you're not supposed to be rapping, as if that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I read a quote by Snoop Dogg who said that rap is so masculine there may never be a space for a homosexual rapper, but it can be accepted in the singing world, which I thought was really interesting, because sometimes singing is like relative to being effeminate. So I found that really interesting.
Well, do you know what it is? I think that more and more, like in terms of the way that rap is going, because obviously we kind of, like you said, we echo the US a lot of the time. You got rappers singing, and then you've got singers that are becoming more like rappers, looking like rappers. You know, like back in the 90s, you'd have boy bands that would wear the same clothes, you know, and dress up and do like these little cool dance routines and stuff. And now you have artists like, you know, I know it's UK FULLSTOP, but like Chris Brown, who he looks like a rapper, or he's dressing like a rapper. He has the bravado of a rapper, even though he can sing his heart out. So it's very interesting that, you know, emotion is kind of linked with, you know, being weak almost.
And I've never really understand why that is. Is it because emotions are then linked to women? And something really important that Keyboy said is that homophobia and sexism have a sort of relationship where, you know, seeing a woman as less of a man is then linked to a guy being gay. So,
And I think that's why, because one of my friends said that, because one of his guy friends is gay but has muscles and stuff, and people always shocked, like, no way, not him, you know. I thought it was someone else. But interestingly as well, I think because, you know, you were talking about rap and it originated in the US, and with race as well, I think sometimes, do you think that might be a factor hand in hand of why it's not as accepted, because of the community that it's originating from?
I think that's really interesting, because like people say that a lot, that it's usually the black community that look down upon homosexuality, but then one of the most apparent homophobic rappers was Eminem, who's white, and the Beastie Boys was a white group, and they were associated with homophobia. So is it a race thing?
You can't say it's like a yes and no, like devil's advocate on like.
I don't think it's a race thing, but obviously because, you know, when it comes to, you know, rap, it is still predominantly, you know, ethnic minorities, you know, black and Latino people who run it. You know, that's where it kind of comes into play. But you're right. I think that it doesn't necessarily see colour in that sense. Like there's discrimination for them all over the world. I was watching a documentary of Reggie Yates.
I need to see that.
Yeah, it was a very, very good documentary, and that was in Russia, and they're as white as day. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think that's quite an interesting point. But like back to the clothes as well, because someone mentioned clothing, and I think it was Bizzle. Bizzle mentioned clothing, and I think that's a very, very interesting point, because I actually have well, I've had friends, you know, in school, whatever, who have said, you know, homophobic things. I'm not saying that they're homophobes or whatever, but they've said homophobic things. You know, we, you know, fire off jokes at one another, maybe about dress, maybe about the way that, you know, things are kind of fitting or whatever. But then it's funny because hip hop has kind of gone in a high fashion way, and a lot of those people who are producing the clothes are gay, are super gay.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at one time,
out.
exactly, if you wanted to design stuff, it either felt like you had to be a woman or, you know,
gay guy.
but now there is that middle ground where it's cool to have your own brand t-shirts and hats and stuff like that.
And we see a lot of hip hop artists that are now dipping into wearing all this fancy, flamboyant kind of long dresses. We've got ASAP Rocky and Young Thug wearing all this new skirts and all of that. Where maybe 20 years ago that would have never been seen in hip hop.
Will Smith's son, Jaden,
Jaden. Exactly.
Yeah.
In a dress. But going back to what you were saying about insults and things, and even Matt Lamore's thing where he said, have you checked out YouTube comments? So when you see a comment where someone's written, oh, that's so gay, like, what do you think that they're saying it in a negative way, or how has that connotation become?
I think that phrase, that's gay, has been used so much that it's almost become normalized. And I think people forget the deeper root to it. And when it's like that, I don't think they may mean it in a negative way, but it is negative. It is a negative thing to say.
Do you think that it's kind of like along the same lines of like team light skin, team dark skin? Is it kind of like that? Where, you know, you're making jokes. Like, for example, like you look at Drake and people would be like, oh, yeah, Drake's soft because he's light skinned. You know what I mean? And then, you know, someone else is hard because they're dark skinned. Like,
just stereotypes and the ideas of what people should be and what they shouldn't be. And it's kind of like the phrase no homo. People throw it around like it's nothing. And that really did stem from people trying to defend their manlyhood. You know, like Dipset and Cameron when he used to wear pink.
Pause.
Exactly.
Drake is seen as such a nice rapper, and it's not that it's a rarity, but people are like, oh, well, why is he so soft? Why is he so nice?
Because rappers are not meant to be soft. They're meant to portray the exaggerate image of what a guy is meant to be.
I think rappers are probably the most sensitive people, some of the most sensitive people on the planet, but it comes across as a way where they're kind of lashing out a lot of the time.
Definitely, for you to make music and express all your feelings, you have to be very sensitive. So I agree.
For sure. All right. So in terms of responses, surprisingly, well, not really surprisingly, a lot of people didn't necessarily respond this evening. I think that's kind of just a true reflection of how people are. I think a lot of people, like I put in the comments, you know, this is a conversation about hip hop. We're not, if you comment on this, no one's questioning your sexual orientation. You don't have to defend that, like, you know, you don't have to say, oh yeah, well, you know, as a straight man, blah blah, or you know, as a straight female, like, no, we're not asking about you. But anyways, shout out Ebony. She says, I'm not sure if the hip hop audience is ready for a gay artist from a racial perspective. Blacks have had a long-standing history of not accepting two alternative sexual identities, which will make it harder for an openly homo rapper to create an interest from them. Homosexuality is also seen as an effeminate, and hip-hop is very masculine energy. On the other hand, I do believe it will be easier for a lesbian rapper to gain some mainstream success because lesbians are more widely accepted.
100%.
Really,
Sorry, but
really interesting. And it was something that came up a lot when I was interviewing some artists who were like, they would rather see two women in videos because it kind of goes with the fantasy of what guys like to see. Instead of, you know, two men in a video. And that was surprising for me because why not?
It's double standards, which makes me laugh so much.
For real.
Yeah.
And what do you think it would take for closeted rappers to say, you know what, I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna say?
Well, see, what I really wanted to do with this feature was say that there are actually closeted rappers that are coming out. You know, maybe then it's not in the mainstream, but I think what the mainstream needs is that one person to just do it. And when that one person does it and breaks that kind of barrier, then it opens the door for all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's such a big. I feel like I could just talk about it all night.
It's a big topic, for sure. So I think I just kind of end it with my little 2 cents, because I think that this is really, really important. So the way I see it, the reason why I kind of asked a member of London 360 to do this topic in particular was because I see some of the struggles that are similar to, well, that are going on in the gay community. I see some of that as similar to what went on with, you know, within the black community. You know, we still kind of go through, you know, struggles of discrimination. You know, if you go to certain parts of the world, you know, I'm discriminated against for being black. So imagine, you know, if you're gay or lesbian and, you know, you're just trying to live in one of these communities, it's crazy, some of the stuff that happens. So yeah, that is definitely the reason why. So thank you so much for...
That's great, don't worry. Thank you so much for
that.
having
Really,
me.
it was so good.
Do you have a final thought?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think hip hop is all about self-expression. Like Martin said at the end of the package, hip hop is for everyone. So if you have a story, hip hop is the place to go. So I feel like your sexual identity shouldn't necessarily be taken into consideration when you're a rapper. It's not important. It's about the content of your song, the value of your music, and the artistry.
This is UK Full Stop, playing the greatest to the latest in UK urban culture. Thursdays, 10 p.m. to midnight on West Side Radio.